Hi, this is Jim Cranston from 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com, the podcast and website about reimagining your life. Thanks for joining me today to talk about those bad days. So let's get started. But first, of course, I'm not a medical professional. I'm just talking about things that I find personally useful and helpful. If you find yourself having like too many bad days in a row or just feeling depressed, please seek professional medical help. Dial 988, which is the National Suicide Hotline, 911 if it's really, you just have to talk to somebody right away. You know, there's nothing wrong with getting a little voice to listen to you and someone to talk things over with. Good to know for yourself and for a friend. So keep those numbers in mind. Like I say, the new shortcut number is 988, or if you really need immediate assistance, just dial 911. They'll be happy to talk with you as well. So if you like what you hear today, please leave a like, tell your friends, and send me a message. Hopefully, we all generally expect and hope to have kind of good days. Those are days where things tend to go right, and it's easy to be in kind of an upbeat sort of mood. But what do you do if you're having a down day or a bad day? One of those days where it just seems like if you didn't have bad luck, you wouldn't have any luck at all, as they say. People, perhaps worldwide, but certainly in the so-called Western civilizations, seem to have a tendency to nicely group everything together in blocks of 24 hours, kind of starting when we wake up. So, you know, if it starts off, if you had a bad night, of course, you didn't sleep well, you may consider the start of your days whenever you stop sleeping. So that brings us to the first point. Studies have shown that regardless of how much sleep people actually got, people who feel like they got a bad night's sleep, indeed, they tend to wake up feeling worse, and they assume that they did get a bad night's sleep. There's some interesting studies on that, where they actually monitored people, and they they had all the brain waves that you would expect from a good night's sleep, but for whatever reason they expected to have a bad night's sleep. Oh, I had some coffee before I went to bed, whatever happened. And pretty much universally, they would wake up saying that they didn't feel rested. Similarly, people that had short nights and did have a restless night for whatever reason, whether it's hot or whatever, um, if they had expected to sleep well and they woke up thinking they slept well, then indeed they tended to feel more refreshed. So, but we already know a little bit about this, right? We can convince our mind of just about anything. So, if we start the day saying that we didn't sleep well, our mind and our body will make that become a true statement. But often there really are reasons to wake up not feeling perky. Even still, we're still in control of our reactions to the situation. We can try and rearrange our day and push off some of the demanding tasks or allow more time to complete some of the things. Or, there are other changes perhaps that we can make that are in our control. But eventually, you may get to some things that really have to be addressed, even though you just don't feel prepared or enthusiastic about doing them. So this brings us to the next option, which is kind of restart your day. Right? We try to get up feeling perky, and it just didn't work. We trudged, and started our day. Everything just seemed kind of bleak. Who said we have to continue along the same path all day? Perhaps you can just do a reset. If you're fortunate, maybe you can take a nap. And if you want, I happen to be really lucky. If I take a 10 or 15-minute nap, it really resets me, and I wake up feeling totally refreshed. I know a lot of people, I used to know a couple people in particular, who used to get really mad at me for that, because they said if they took a short nap, they just woke up feeling horrible if they didn't get like 2 or 3 hours of sleep. So depending on your own personal physiology, maybe you can take just a little short break, or just a break of any sort. Give yourself a treat. Do something to kind of restart the day. But you have to restart with the correct attitude. It's not, oh, I can repeat the lousy morning I already had, right? You really have to try and start over. Just kind of get up and say, oh, okay, this is the start of another new day, and go from there. Think about anything good, especially if it involves, someone beside yourself. Looking outside of yourself generally makes the world seem a little brighter. Now, think about one of the things that you don't feel like doing. It's on your list for today. You just don't want to do it. And think about the smallest first step to get going on it. It doesn't matter how small, and I mean truly, it can be infinitesimally small. But also think of the next step to do after that, and then try and go do both of them, right? So you can look back and say, there, you've made some progress, and you should celebrate that. Even if it's a 30-second break, just to smile and realize you are having a better day than you expected. Now you can continue to build upon that, little teeny step, and very importantly, focus on the progress and not the reason you had to restart or what might go wrong. Use your own momentum to keep you moving along. Okay, you couldn't rearrange your day and the restart wasn't practical for whatever reason or it didn't work. Now what? Well, you can try the same trick as when you tried to restart your day, but change your focus to just have a win in any form, no matter how small. This may sound silly, but for many of us, the hardest part is just getting started or getting any single thing accomplished. Once you start, even a tiny little bit, build upon that and make sure that you're thinking about the next tiny step you could take. When you have a plan, even a small one, your brain will start to calm down and feel like, well, there's a path to move forward. And that alone will start to limit the stress from seeing this impossibly big task because you're starting to make little progress and that big task will start to melt away. This may be one of those situations where you just have to buckle down and take the teeniest of steps, but do it. And very importantly, celebrate it because you're now making little bits of progress. If you find yourself in this position, you may also need to adjust your goals a little bit, but even that can be done with a bit of a twist. If you just give yourself more time or fewer things to do, then that's exactly what's going to happen, right? We tend to live towards our goals and say, well, I'm not going to get this done, and indeed, you won't get it done. But if instead you leave the original goal sitting there and instead say, if I don't quite make it, well, I'll at least be a little satisfied that I made some progress. And by doing that, you're removing a lot of the stress in your mind. And when you do that, your mind will then be ready to keep moving forward and still looking ways to hit the full goal. It knows the stress is off, that if it doesn't make it, well, the world won't stop turning, as it were. But it still wants to kind of hit that goal because it knows it's sitting there and your mind wants you to succeed. Remember, your mind doesn't want you to fail in everything you do or actually anything that you do. So even when you're working along making minimal progress, your mind will still be looking for solutions for the whole challenge. It's just how it works. Now, you may still end up having a pretty bad day when all is said and done. You tried all these things, none of them really worked really well. It's kind of, that was a pretty mediocre day or worse. But you still don't have to let it be a total waste. Far from it. Even when you look back at a bad day, it's worth spending a few moments to see what you might have done differently. Think about why it was a bad day. Personally, most of my worst days are the days that are a day or two before when I get sick. My body's simultaneously trying to get everything done because it's knowing it's going to be feeling bad soon. And there's all this stress because I'm trying to get all this stuff done. I'm not sure why. And I always miss the really obvious big hint that I'm in a bad mood because I'm getting sick. If the day started off okay and got bad, think about why that happened. What happened? What thing triggered it? And if there's anything you could do to avoid it in the future. Perhaps you can change your expectations. I once had it was a commute. It was about 40 miles. It was a reasonably long commute. And that could take almost 2 hours during rush hour, when normally on a nice day it would take about 50 minutes, 45 minutes. Most of it was on a highway. And I finally reframed my expectations that it would take 2 hours to get home. And anything faster than that was a win. It made a huge difference in that commute. Before I'd be kind of, I should be almost to the other town by now. I'm not halfway. And this was kind of like, hey, I'm ahead of schedule. It's a good day. It's a good commute. Sometimes I'd arrange to meet someone halfway for dinner. I changed how I framed the problem, and the problem became much smaller in my life. The important part is to remember that life happens for us, not to us. It's always teaching us things. Think about how to reframe things. The longer commute, well, it was because it was for a better job with nice people. And when you remember those sorts of things, then it becomes worthwhile. It's not just a pain, but it's a pain for a reason. You can remember the reason and remember the good that's bringing into your life as well. Everyone's situation is different, but if you really think about the reasons that you're doing something, why you're doing it, often it turns out it's for some really good reasons, and the irritation is a small price to pay when you put it into perspective. And it's still worthwhile if you can't find any good reasons to put up with some irritation, because then you can reevaluate the action and see if it's consistent with your goals. The real message in all these things is that we really do have some degree of control over how we react to and interact with the world. That doesn't mean we can control every detail, but we usually have some amount of input into the general trend of our days, and often a lot of input into how we react to every situation. Very important, it doesn't mean every day will be wonderful. A look at the news any day of this year, any year, will make it clear that no matter where you are, bad things are happening. But even in times of disaster, you can see different people responding in very different ways. It's kind of the personification of how they have chosen to address a difficult situation. So have faith in your own power and your own strength to do as much as you desire to live your life to the best terms possible. Perfection isn't the goal, but it's satisfaction, and satisfaction leads to joy, and that'll bring happiness. I hope you now have, some new ways to kind of overcome those difficult days and realize that often we may be able to make some changes that at least help us through to some specific challenges and help us see some of the good things that could happen during that day. Of course, as I mentioned before, if you're on a roll and nothing but bad days, then that might benefit from some, refocusing, reevaluating everything, even professional help to kind of guide you into a different direction and assist you into seeing things in a different way. Another viewpoint is always a good thing. Your homework, optional, of course, as always, is to think about the last time you had a day that was a bad day. Then think about what you decided about it that was bad and how, that just built upon itself for the whole day. Extra points if you take the next step, and then think if there's anything you could have done to break that bad cycle. If you think yes, write it down, and that'll help get you through it the next time it comes around and gives you some little way that you can kind of turn things around, maybe a little bit more towards having at least a neutral day or maybe even a good day. So that's it for the evening. As always, ukr7.com. I just found a whole bunch of new links, and I apologize I did not get them up. But there's still the old links are there. The link to World Central Kitchen, which is we talked about. They do meals for people in need. A lot of it is for disasters of any sort. So wck.org, ukr7.com, which focuses on Ukraine. There's a lot of other organizations right now getting aid together for the war in the Mideast between Israel and Hamas to help the Palestinians who are caught in the middle of the whole thing. And there's a lot of ways that you can help. And if you don't want to help overseas, there's lots of organizations locally. And as I've often said, even just meeting somebody in the street and being pleasant to them when it looks like they're having a bad day, not in your face pleasant, just say, hey, how's it going? And just keep walking, just smile at them. Anything, just to break the cycle of the day, because they could be having a really bad day too. And so anything you can do to pull them out of that and change their focus is a good thing. Remember, helping other people, thinking outside of yourself, really changes your perspective on the world. And it generally makes the world a much more approachable and nicer place to be. So if you can and you're able, please check it out. Any of the ways you can help someone else. As always, thank you for stopping by. If you found something interesting or useful, please pass it along and please hit that like button. If not, please drop me a comment as to what you'd like to hear. Have a great week. Remember to live the life that you dreamed of, because that's the path to true contentment. Love and encouragement to everyone. See you next week on 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com. Thank you.